painting your assignment first, you should look through the attached PowerPoint that gives a bunch of examples on different ways that you could choose to paint this. You should have a color wheel. You should have your practice piece of paper. Remember when we did our setup and we did our experimenting, we had an extra piece of paper that was blank. You may want to look at your color swatches that you did to see if you liked any of the mixes that you made. I'm going to be doing mine today in cool colors primarily, and I'm going to use some warm colors, but just as like little pops of color in places, but predominantly it's going to be blues, greens, violets, red, violet. Okay, so having this is a good idea. You definitely need a color wheel for reference. You definitely need your practice piece of paper. You're going to need your watercolors. I'm also going to give you a piece of aluminum foil so that if you want to mix colors, you'll have them. So sometimes we mix in the trays here, and which is fine if there weren't 4 classes that are all sharing the watercolors. So we're going to mix in foil, and then you can just fold it and put it in your folder at the end of the class period. Okay, so I'm always going to have my practice piece sitting here to the side, and you're going to take the brush that was in your watercolors. They usually have a yellow end. They're a 6, so they're numbered. So if you can see, there's a number on that 6. I'm also going to need a smaller brush. This is a 1. If I need something really tiny, I have smaller brushes. They're up on the edge of the sink. This is an 05. You're going to need a cup of water and a paper towel to blot. Okay, so those are all the things to get you started. So before I get on here, I want to start like figuring out. I have areas that I did pattern on. I have the areas that I pebbled on, and then I have shapes, and I'm going to sort of do this. I'm going to do sort of a diagonal path with some warm colors, probably sort of winding my way like sort of through here, maybe just a few here and more as it goes this way, and then the rest will be cool colors is I think my current plan. But I'm going to start with the cool colors because I know that they're kind of like my favorites. And before I go on here, I'm going to just sort of plan out my first ones. I'm going to do some right now that are going to be red violet, so I'm always going to like practice a little bit on my practice page, and then I'm dabbing, and I'm going to do a blue violet and see what that looks like and where the two meet. Now, if I have too much water, so it's been a couple days since I've done this, I can pick up that water. Now, I don't want to mix to a solid. I still want to see a fade from one color to the next as I'm doing this. And, okay, I like that fade. I'm going to start and do some with this. And so to have continuity, that means so this thing looks like it goes together, I'm going to be doing that color pattern in several places. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to paint the lighter color for me on the middle, and I'm going to, as it goes out, I'm going to let it go to that darker value. So I'm rinsing my brush. Out here is that blue violet color, so I'm going to pull that around this outer edge, and I'm really controlling how much water is on this. I don't want to go too dark either because I want to make sure that the black lines really contrast these colors. So for me, I'm definitely darker on this edge and then fading in the middle to this lighter red violet. But I want it to be a little more intense. I'm going to go back with some more red violet. Now, this painting is going to take us probably 3 days, and if we have to add a 4th, I could. So we don't want to rush. We want it to be clean and neat. So there's my first shape. I'm going to start with that, and I'm going to move to my next one. There's kind of a glare. Okay. Let's see if I turn this down one. All right, so next one. I'm going to stick with that, but I'm going to move away from there. I'm going to come down to here. I'm never going to try and let it line up directly. I'm going to put another one with that combination here. The other thing is this: if you are right-handed, you probably should work from this left-handed side and then work your way across, so you're not putting your hand down wet into something you've painted. If you're lefty, I would work in reverse. And this doesn't mean you have to paint every single one and work your way one to the other, but as a general rule, I'm gonna sort of paint with this pattern going from left to right. So I end up with this. Now I've just flooded with a bunch of water here. So let me pull this over. And I have a puddle. Instead of pushing this puddle too much, I'm going to dab my brush to get rid of some of that water. So I just dabbed it on my paper towel to get rid of some of the water. And I'm going to push right out to the edge where the tape is. And there's my second one. So I would continue repeating this. I'm going to do another one down here towards the bottom. And so that's like my first color combination. I'm doing a red violet and a blue violet. Then I'm going to pick the next one. So here I'm going to do red violet and the blue violet on the outer edge. And I'm going to change. And actually, as I'm sitting here looking at this, I think I'm going to do something with the ones that have the lines in them. I'm going to do with a combination, and I'm going to do that combination throughout all of them. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to pick, and I think I want to do them like these in lime green to start. So I'm going to test it here. So I think I'm going to do them in lime green, and then I'm going to come back in with turquoise. And so where all the stripes are, I'm going to pull turquoise on top of the stripes and then let them blend out from there, I think is what I'm going to try to do. All right, so let's do some. I'm going to go back in here with yellow green. And again, I'm going to start on this side, and I'm going to do actually the whole shape. So my plan on these is I'm going to do the whole shape first. And the nice thing is with these wide barriers, I don't have to worry about it bleeding through as long as I'm controlling the water in this barrier. So I'm going to do this first, and then I'm going to switch to my smaller brush, and I'm going to go into this turquoise, and I'm going to do at each line, I'm going to put some turquoise. And then I'm going to let it bleed a little bit or mix from that line down. And so here, and mixing here. And here. The nice thing is, if I don't like it, I could go back over this with turquoise in the whole space and then mix out from there. I still want to do edges with the darker, with the turquoise, so I'm going to pull around this edge with the turquoise itself, so I still get that darker on the edge fading its way in, but I like that this has a little bit more of a controlled texture. I'm going to put some, and I don't want my paint to get thick and chunky, so if ever you are painting and your paint is thick and it's not thin and flowing nice and transparent, you're digging too much into your palette. So after using them multiple times, they are going to get the pans stay a little bit wetter, and we're going to be mindful of that. So I'm going to do some more of these in that green. While I'm here, I'm going to do both of these. So I'm going to allow any of mine that have this one texture in it, I'm going to allow them to be this lime green with and I'm going to work these two because they're pretty small. I'm going back to my small brush. Now, I think for my pebbles, the little tiny pebbly ones, I think they're the ones that I'm going to introduce some warmer colors in. So here's these on the lines. And I'm going to test that on my test page and put it next to the other things that I've tested to see if I like it. Because if I don't like it, then I'm not going to do it. If I don't really have the colors that I want, I could mix them. So I'm going to show you how to mix them. Just a sec. Let me do this. And let me do this other one here. So dark around the edge with my turquoise. And then I'm going to pull through these lines. Okay. Like that. Okay. So let's say I wanted to make, I'm gonna definitely do like I think I'm gonna do like some yellow orange in those small ones, and they're gonna be like yellow orange fading to darker red, but I'm always here. I'm gonna test. And if your water gets dirty, see, to me that looks a little dirty. I'm gonna mix some yellow into it to brighten it a little bit. Okay. That is the color I want to use. So I'm going to go from this, and then I'm going to work my way in the pebbles to reds. And they'll form an orange in the middle. If I want to put a pure orange in here, I could. But I'm going to do like the fiery colors, red, oranges, and yellows in the pebbles themselves. So as I come through here, I'm going to start with, and if your water gets dirty as you're doing this, you do need to get up and clean it. Like, don't let your water turn your paint gray. So I'm going to start in here with these pebbles. I'm just going to do the set that's right here for now. So I'm going to do them. This is yellow orange. And then I'm going to get my smaller brush. And again, the nice thing is, if I did my Sharpie nice and dark, I can go pull right over it as long as I'm not painting too thick. I'm going to go in with a smaller brush with, I'm going to do red orange. And I'm going to do it probably just on one side. Instead of looping the whole way, I'm going to just do one side red orange. So here, I'm going to go from one side red orange and fade. Red orange and fade. So I'm putting the red orange in. And then I'm going to have to probably add just a tiny bit of brush with just water. And I'm going to mix them just a little bit. I still want to keep that lighter fading to darker, but I don't want to see a big line in them. Okay. So I'm going to do pebbles in yellow orange, fading to red orange. And I'm going to sort of now systematically do the pebbles, probably everywhere like that, moving from left to right. So I'm not dragging my hand through wet. The other thing is, if you have edges and you're pushing your paint to the edges that are wet, and you put down another shape next to it wet, you're going to get mixing. So what I would try to do is, I would try to make sure you either have large enough black barriers that you don't have to worry about the water bleeding in from one to the next. Because if I mix orange and any value of blue, like this turquoise, it's going to gray itself out. So I'm always trying to control the amount of water. Let's say I wanted to make pink. Pink would be made by mixing a red and a white. So I would probably mix on this foil, and what I'm going to do is, I'm going to clean my brush, I'm going to pick up some white, and I'm going to put some white down here. Okay? Then I'm going to, so I'm just like wetting the brush, putting some here. Now I'm going to clean my brush, and I'm going to go into red, and I'm going to mix some red into it to make a pink. So there's a pink. And then I would use this, so I'm going to test, make sure it's the color I want, because sitting on top of paper, so there's a really light pink. I might even be adding something like red violet to it. Okay, kind of like that, even better. So once I figure out what I want, I can mix on this surface here, and even if it dries, I can re-wet it each time that I sit down to paint this. So if you get a color that you like, you can mix it here, and you can keep remixing it when you want to use it. So maybe I would do pink here, and then fading to you know, a darker, maybe a violet on the edges. So pink, true pink fading to violet. And I could even make a lighter violet, like a lilac colored violet, so it's not so dark. Mix that up on there. And I might have to keep adding to it, but again, if it gets too wet, I'm picking it up off there with the brush. If I want to add more pigment, I can. And that is it. So this will dry as long as you're not sopping it. You just fold this in half, put it into your folder, and make sure you clean your brush. If you ever need to clean your brush as you're working, like, or your paints as you're working, you can get a microfiber towel and clean out your paints, so you can just like wipe across the paints if you need to. Yeah, I'm gonna experiment some more. First on my practice, okay, I want to do some blue, and now I'm gonna come on to here. So I'm gonna do some bright blue, and then my bright blue is gonna fade on the edges to violet, or actually maybe to blue-green. But I know I want to start with blue here, and then I'm going to fade to another cool color. So I'm always using this too. I'm always using, making sure that I'm not stepping more than 2 away on either side of the color wheel, and that I'm testing. And actually what I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to do I'm going to leave it just blue, but I'm going to do a darker blue. So I'm going to use value, and I'm going to use like a purer, darker blue on the edge, not thick and crusty, but I'm going to do, you know, like a darker blue that I'll then leave lighter in the middle, just by the middle has more water mixed into it. And I don't want a hard line like that, so I'm going to go in and soften that with a little bit of water. But something like that. So you can also do just by the amount of water, doing light values of a color to darker values of a color. What I don't want though is I don't want just a bunch of solid shapes. You should have a variety of values, and you should do some color mixing. But it might make sense to do some, like here I'm going to do like this is part of this grouping of lines, or I'm going to consider it part of that. So I'm going to do like one that's blue, one that's turquoise, one that's blue, one that's turquoise. And I'm going to alternate my way around. So I'm going to put light blue first into every other one. So here, here, here. So that's just my basic blue into these, and then I'll come back around on the outer edges and do like a darker value, but I'm going to need a smaller brush for sure. And that is kind of it. Once you have a plan, the deal is just keep everything clean and neat as you execute that plan. And again, when you're done, you'll submit. After 3 days of classwork, everyone submits whatever we've got, and then we'll gauge from there if we need more time.